I am the co-founder and executive director of Women Grow. We are a national professional networking organization that supports women moving into and up through the cannabis industry. We currently have networking events in 20 cities across the United States on the first Thursday of every month, and then another great assortment of conferences and workshops to get women into leadership roles in cannabis.
Thank you for all the great work you do. How did you get involved in the cannabis industry?
Sure. Well, the joke is that I was born into the cannabis industry. My parents were living in Humboldt in the early 80s, and I'm actually even born in Canada because my dad couldn't live under both a Reagan governorship and a Reagan presidency. But of course, like all good kids, you have to reject everything your parents love, and I went off into the world to do technology and business and a bit of theater as well. And then when I was ready to start my kind of seventh venture, I turned back towards the cannabis industry and started researching the space and found a woman named Jane West who had announced a group called Women Grow at a conference last June. And I had previously been with an organization called Women 2.0, which was helping women get venture capital funding in the tech world. And it turned out by coincidence she had fashioned Women Grow after the same business model, seeing women too out in the space. And so it was a kismet, and we met and started collaborating instantly, and we launched Women Grow last August, about 8 months ago.
Wow, that's awesome. And you guys have had tremendous growth and success since then, so congratulations. I hope that it only continues. Um, but on the flip side of things, I'm wondering what's a key failure or a mistake that you've learned from as an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I think the core challenge that my org has now, and I think most of the companies in the space, is really working on your cash flow. We as cannabis businesses, we don't have access to a lot of the traditional funding sources out there. And so I've seen time and time again, because the industry is so new, because expectations are all over the place, it's really difficult to come up with the capital you need to succeed in the short term, so you can keep running your day-to-day operations. So for example, with my org, I'm not taking a paycheck this year until we hit certain revenue thresholds, because that's what we need to do to keep the org running without taking on investment money.
Right. Yeah, I know all about that. So along those lines, what's your number one piece of advice for aspiring cannabis entrepreneurs?
Wow, there is so much out there to say. We just did a great webinar on looking at opportunities in the industry, and it was great to see people come in with so many different ideas. I would say that, if you don't have a background in entrepreneurship, you can start there. There's so much being done for solo entrepreneurs and for small entrepreneurs out there in the marketplace that'll teach you the business basics. If you've already got the business basics down and you understand how your accounting is going to work, et cetera, how your business plan works, then it's about deep diving into the cannabis industry and really getting into the nuts and bolts and talking to everybody. You have to remember that this is an industry that was underground for years and years and years until quite recently. And so the information isn't available freely online yet, although you're trying to change that with this series, which I appreciate.
Thank you.
You really do need to go out to the events and talk to people literally on the ground to get a sense of where the industry is going and to validate your ideas and to move forward with your ideas.
Absolutely, absolutely. What are you most excited about for 2015 in the cannabis world?
I'm really excited to start seeing brands go multi-state, which is as close to national as we're able to go right now. The first year with Denver and Washington getting up and running, I should say Colorado and Washington, although the majority of the industry is focused around Denver. We're really grand experiments, and so to see those brands and the brands out of California now say, okay, experiment time's over, we're going to do this and we're going to do this big. It is fascinating to watch how the different partnerships are working, how the different licensing models are working, and how you can do something that's federally illegal in multiple states at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side, what are some of your biggest concerns for the industry in 2015?
I think right now what's really difficult is to agree, is to have a consensus within the industry about how we're going to go about legalization. We're seeing smaller fights being fought just on the industry level in states that are looking to legalize. We're hoping to move towards adult legalization in about 12 states within the next couple of years. And that's a lot of states and a lot of agendas to work through. And so I hope that the folks in the cannabis industry can really do their best to, let bridges be bridges and work together to find a legalization model that works well for everybody, recognizing there's going to be compromises, there's going to be things we don't like in these early days, but hopefully making progress is worth making some compromises.
Right. And I know Women Grow had an awesome event recently with Lobby Days. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So in February, we brought 76 cannabis business owners, all women, of course, to Washington to walk the halls and take meetings with about 50 different congressional offices. It was a really great time for women to learn how to be a part of the political process. This isn't an industry that's dominated by huge lobbying firms yet. And so, really, the individual business owners can make a great impact on how we legislate in this time of federal illegality and local legality. So we were specifically working on three issues. The first is access to banking, making sure that cannabis businesses definitely have clear access to banking. One of our members, Brooke Gehring, runs the Live Green Group. She did $10 million in revenue last year, and half of that without banking services.
Wow.
She's had 34 bank accounts canceled over 5 years of being in the cannabis industry. So
Wow.
banking is still a core issue for this industry that a lot of people think we've obviously overcome, but it's just not true. We haven't.
Right.
The second issue that we work on is a provision of the tax code called 280E, which if you're going to get into the cannabis industry and deal with anything that touches the plant of cannabis itself, you need to be familiar with 280E, which is part of the IRS tax code. And that tax code was created so that drug cartels couldn't write off their speedboats, for example. And the idea is that you can't write off normal business deductions if your business is dealing in controlled substances.
Mhm.
And that means as a cannabis business, we can't write off our salaries, our marketing expenses, our rent, our utilities, any of those very obvious business expenses. So the current cannabis businesses in the industry are paying between 50 to 70% of their net income, that's not profits, it's net income in taxes currently, if they follow 280E to the letter. So obviously that's not a sustainable position. We'd rather have that money reinvested into more local jobs, into expanding, buying more equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third platform we work on is, of course, equal and fair treatment for women and diverse candidates in the cannabis industry. Many states have chosen models where only a very few license holders will be able to be a part of the industry, and we want to make sure that diverse candidates have a place at that table.
So I have two last questions for you. One is, how can people who love cannabis better serve the movement to end prohibition?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So, I mean, the first thing that we work on with people is coming out, coming out of the cannabis closet or the cannabis basement, some people like to say. A lot of mainstream America's impression of who a cannabis user is based on outdated stereotypes. And so, especially if you are a well positioned person in your life, sharing that cannabis consumption is part of how you relax or how you manage pain or whatever that means to you with your friends, with your neighbor, and especially with your mother, is a really important process that we all need to go through as a country as we really change what cannabis consumption means.
Yeah, awesome. And then what about people outside of cannabis culture who are unfamiliar with it or don't know much? What's something that you wish they knew about cannabis?
Well, I wish they knew how flexible cannabis was and how, although we don't have all the double blind testing we would like, how the really early anecdotal reports and smaller studies have shown that this isn't just about getting high. This is about health. This is about healing. This is about wellness. And we live in a world that is overstressed and overstimulating, and we're expected to multitask constantly. And in a world that is actually very disconnecting from the other people around us. And cannabis is something that can counteract all of those trends and give you a break from all of those issues. And so, especially for women, I have to say, it's a great way. It's a great method to add some peace and relaxation to your routine, to add some pleasure to your routine, to add a different way of looking at your life. If you want to take it even that far. So, in a day where we are over medicated, where we are constantly on one pill to wake up and another pill to go to sleep and another pill to concentrate, I would like us all to enjoy something that helps us relax and reconnect with each other.
Well put. Any closing words or last thoughts? Anything you want to share with the people?
Well, I definitely would share with anyone who's watching this and thinking about getting into the cannabis industry and not quite sure that now is the time. This is not only a business that's going to be quite large locally wherever you may be, but then it becomes a national industry. And then what's kind of the most fun is we get to take it international. So if you can build your background and build your expertise in cannabis now, you really will be able to come into the market quite strongly. So focus on whatever you do best in life and see if that also could work for the cannabis industry. And you'll probably be quite successful because right now there's so much opportunity and the market is growing so fast that there's really a lot of space for innovation, a lot of space for great people to enter the industry. So join us. I'd love for you to join us at a Women Grow networking event. They're the first Thursday of every month, probably in a city near you, and do some research and check out what's going on and meet us. And you'll find out that the industry is quite welcoming and quite ready for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jasmine. I have to say, I remember the first Women Grow meetup I went to. I don't recall if it was you or Diane who made the point about, we have the chance here to rewrite or write the rules for a new industry. And, we specifically Women Grow wants to make sure that it's an industry where women get paid the same as men. And that really, stood out to me because it made me realize wow, this is so much bigger than, just a great opportunity for entrepreneurs. This is a tremendous opportunity to rewrite the rules of business and industry and make sure that, things are fair and sustainable and, all these good things that have kind of been neglected by a lot of big business to date. So, thank you so much for all the work you do. Women Grow is truly one of the most innovative organizations I've seen in the cannabis world, and I think you're spot on. Now is the time. So if you're watching this, please go and get involved. Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
All right, see you soon.